I want to do a musing on the topic of experiencing God from duality consciousness and singularity consciousness. Once again, this is going to be a repeating topic, and I hope I can bear out why this is so important, why this difference needs to be explained. It is, how shall I say this? This could potentially be very triggering to a lot of people, especially those who have a relationship with God and love God as another being. In other words, you love God, but you do not recognize yourself as God, and therefore you're going to place all your energy and all your love and all your attention onto another being, not on yourself. And I'm going to try to explain the vital difference and why it is important in my view and in my understanding and in my consciousness and experience that you eventually recognize your oneness with God as God. You are going to have to identify as divine. If I have to use a different word, not to trigger you in saying recognize yourself as God, but recognize yourself as divine, as the object of worship and devotion. Because without seeing it like that and without recognizing that consciously, you are never going to love yourself. And it's an absolute requirement that you learn to love yourself, because only in so doing are you going to develop a love for everyone else without dissolving the duality and becoming a singular source and seeing yourself in the singularity of source. You are not going to be able to overcome your judgment of others, because you have to experience consciously the divinity in you as you in order to also recognize the divinity in every other human being. So unless you can recognize it within yourself, you will never overcome your judgment, you will never overcome your condemnation, you will never overcome your need for discernment, which is just a cover and an excuse to judge someone as lesser, as not measuring up, as guilty, as wrong. So this is why I keep stressing this, that you must recognize yourself as source consciousness, as God consciousness. Without that, you cannot bring peace to yourself, and you cannot bring peace to the people and the environment around you, because we have to be at peace within ourselves to experience that peace as a reality that is not affected by circumstances, but it's affected by the way we perceive. And if we cannot perceive everyone as being God, as being source God fractaled out, and see everyone in their divine essence rather than their shortcomings, we will never be able to stop the judgment and the warring. So it's absolutely essential that you see yourself as the God that you have always sought to worship. You have to bring that worship onto your divine soul, and that will make you whole and give you the eyes to see the rest of the world in that same wholeness, and that is how peace will come. 2,000 years of worshipping and following Jesus has not achieved this peace in the world. And we referred to him as the Prince of Peace, and yet he has not been able to bring peace to the world. It's because, as I explained, we have split our devotion and our focus and divided the rest of humanity from source, and through this division of only considering Jesus Christ as God and personifying God, we have cut off and separated the rest of humanity from source, and that is how we justified our judgment of our fellow man, because we do not see them in the right light, in the bright light that they are in their soul. Because in our duality, we cut off humanity from God's source by allotting that title and identity only to one person named Jesus Christ. Judgment and war remains in the world because of this split, this duality in our mind, the knowledge of good and evil. We keep planting this tree of knowledge of good and evil in that we call God good and humanity evil. That needs to change in exactly the way I explained it. We must bring humanity back as the image of God that we all are, back as source God that we all are, and only then the division and the duality will cease, and the judgment and peace will truly come. But we have to give up our idol. We have to give up the idolatry of a personified God in one identity, in one being, and recognize all of creation as divine source God. And that's what will unify us in love for ourselves and for one another, which will be a collective love for God.